but it's created some wonderful opportunities for us to make an effort to just bring the conversation of the church to you. And appreciate everybody that's involved and engaged. And tonight's a night of asking questions, so start right now. And it's called Ask About Anything, which is literally what you can do. Now, I promise you I can't tell you who won the World Series in 1957 or what size spark plug goes in a 63 Ford Falcon. I don't know. But the kind of things that we would talk about are, you can determine them, and we'll have a good time together. Got a couple of friends with me tonight. Trevor Ford is my son-in-law and associate pastor, and he's going to be moderating the questions.
That's right.
It's going to be a blast. But really, I brought Tommy Holzman here. Tommy, tell us about you, man. Come on, tell us about.
What do you want to know about me?
I want to know what you do for a living.
So I work at U of L Health, which is a recently developed health system that includes U of L Hospital, Brown Cancer Center, Our Lady of Peace, Mary and Elizabeth Medical Center. So it was recently formed a few months ago. I work in the marketing and communications department there. So this is a really busy time for us, even though people might think marketing is not essential at this point. It's really crisis communications, and with things changing hourly and daily, we're busier than ever. So
It's interesting. I wouldn't have thought about it's crisis communication. That's interesting and good. Tommy Holzman is one of the single most creative guys I've ever known in my life. Could you be creative now, Tommy?
Maybe.
Okay, just go ahead and be creative.
Yeah. Well, let's see. We were singing earlier.
No, I don't want you to sing. I prefer Tommy not sing. His creativity has to do with lyrics and rhymes and rhythms and stories and songwriting. He just got it, man.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from, but I would say the more questions you ask, the less you'll have to hear me try to come up with something. So
Somebody has asked, are those your living room couches that we're sitting on?
Absolutely they are. This is a living room chair. It has an ottoman with it, and we didn't bring it over. And that is the love seat, and we have a sofa that goes in between them, but it's not here.
I guess my follow-up question would be, does Anita know that we brought him over?
I'm going to let Tommy Holzman. Tommy, would you answer that question?
She does not know.
Boom, he's out. She does know. Does she like it?
No.
He's right on that one, baby. She's like, when are you going to quit taking my furniture to the church? And I'm like, probably never. It's just the way it rolls, I love these big, significant questions, man. They make me feel just wonderful. Tommy, you got any questions?
Well, I mean, just something that I'm curious about is, Sunday having our first virtual, whatever digital live stream of the service, what that felt like for you, just sitting here talking to the camera instead of the interaction of people and the noise of the praise and worship.
Well, that's a great question, Tommy. And I would like to say I hated it. But that wouldn't be absolutely true. We've been doing these little 90-second videos for 2 or 3 years. And so Trevor's kind of trained me to talk to the camera. And there were 8 or 10 of us in the room. Pardon me, I didn't mean to tell you. There are actually more than 10 in the room, but not many more. And I found myself doing okay with it. You probably know, Tommy, lots of Sunday mornings I will come in and practice in an empty sanctuary. So I'll preach the sermon before anybody shows up but me. And usually Ben Hill and Noah will be the first ones here, and they'll interrupt about the last 4 minutes of the sermon every week because they get here real early. And so it was a letdown in terms of just people. But it still felt okay, man. It still felt okay.
Yeah. And from viewing at home, it felt okay. I mean, it was weird.
Yeah.
It was different. And of course, there's always AV glitches. So sometimes, the audio was going, but you were stuck.
It's happening now.
But it was, we were talking earlier today, Jackie and I were talking about, if this had happened 10 years ago, even with just work and everything, just how different it would be and how much less we could get done.
Yeah.
But, expectations may have been different as well. So
I think that's true. Overall, it was a good experience, We've been challenged because we're in a day and age where, man, church attendance, I don't like it, but it's not an all-time high. It's like wanting to work at home. people want to worship at home. I'm not sure those can be compared exactly, but I do appreciate the church's challenge to deliver some kind of spiritual programming that is engaging and whatever into your house. We've never done that, man. We've never done that.
Yeah, it's a little weird. And for me, who I consider myself old school still a little bit, it's still kind of hard to come around to that, but it's here. So
I'm way old school.
So the next question,
Okay.
Tim Miller asks,
Tim Miller. We can too. No telling what we're going to get. By the way, tell Lisa I said hi. Hi, Lisa.
not Leah, but Lisa?
Lisa, she brushed her teeth and combed her hair before she watched this. I love it when they clean up for church. Nice
So the
job.
question is, how do you pronounce Tommy's last name?
ooh.
And he put correctly.
How do you pronounce it correctly?
Correctly.
Well, I don't know.
I feel like
I
you're
would.
sweating a little bit.
I'm sweating. I would pronounce it like the hose on a fire truck as hoseman, but it's probably no. I'm going with hoseman.
And I would go with Hulsman.
You go with what?
So like a hill, like you climb a hill, Ben?
Huel, hose.
Yes. No, we've always said hillsman, like a hill that you walk up, and I don't even know that that's the correct pronunciation. But
Yeah,
that's
you've
how
been hanging out with Ben way too much,
Yeah,
man.
okay.
I'm done with that. I'm
Yeah,
done with that.
no, that's how my family's always pronounced it.
But you
so.
probably respond to whatever they
Oh yeah,
say.
we get everything.
Hey,
so
you over there, the
it-
tall
yeah,
guy with not
exactly.
much hair.
Yeah, yeah.
The next question is, have you ever been to Berry Twist Parlor?
If Berry Twist Parlor is different from the Berry Twist ice cream.
Ice cream parlor.
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, man. Have you ever been to the Berry
I
Twist?
have not been.
Oh, dude. It's, where is it? It's
Floyd
the bottom of the
Knobs.
hill in Floyd Knobs.
Yeah,
And it's the cat's meow.
it's great. Great
It's a
ice
cat-
cream, great chili dogs. Good
I never
stuff.
had a chili dog there,
good
but it's
stuff,
good
man.
ice cream.
Yeah, they
And
got food.
the atmosphere is nice. They got a little outside veranda you can sit on and chow down, and it's pretty cool.
May have
Beverly McKinney asks, is there any possibility of a drive-in church in the parking lot?
Man, thank you, Beverly. Finally, we got somebody besides Timmy Miller asking questions. Hallelujah. That's for you, Tim. We talked about a drive-in church, and based on how long this lasts, we may attempt something like that. But I thought about that. What if you have, for instance, James and Jenna have 3 kids? Can you imagine 3 kids in the car for an hour in the parking lot?
No, I would not imagine that. I would not choose that.
I'm just telling you, that doesn't sound like any fun at all. Now, for all of us, Beverly, that are
Right.
our kids are grown, and we can ride out there and just chill and have our coffee in the car and 3 Krispy Kreme donuts. Are you with me on that? And sit there and sing and participate. I just don't know how to manage the kid piece in that. So
Maybe have lots of snacks for the kids, right? Like
I
bring
really
some
thought
snacks.
about if we could do a movie over here for the kids and do worship over here for the adults, but I don't know how you pull that off in terms of sound and all of that. I don't know. I'm sure there's churches out there that are finding some creative way to do that, but I don't know.
That was making me think of something earlier today. I always feel like this church has been pretty progressive. I mean, I remember
okay.
when we started coming here and we had the orange pews.
I remember
which
that
I
too.
loved. #orange pew. And so we changed
Wait a minute,
to
what does
this.
that mean? Explain that to me.
I don't even know what that means,
Okay,
but
well,
like,
then
let's
you
bring
know
them
help.
back.
Okay,
So if we
all
can
right.
start a movement,
Okay, go
I'm
ahead.
starting it right now.
All right, okay, start
But
a
no,
movement.
I love the sanctuary it is. And then, I know when we played around with the church in the round a few years back, and so I feel like I've just always been impressed with your willingness to try these things and bring new ideas to us.
Thank you, Tommy. I
So a
love that.
drive-through church doesn't seem as improbable as it may have.
I know there are places that are doing it. In fact, a number of churches are trying that in this season when you really can't be together. And I don't know how to pull it off, but I'm open. I'm impressed with our, Sherry and the children's ministry are doing a really good job trying to deliver. Again, I think it's a season for us to learn to deliver. Man, they're trying to deliver a children's ministry into the homes of kids and their parents. And Trevor's been working with the teens on Wednesday night through Zoom or the Google platform to have some conversations. In fact, they played a game Wednesday night. It was kind of like, go find this in your house, and whoever wins the game had a pizza delivered the next day. And so it was pretty fun. You know, they found, so the creative way to continue to engage people, I think, we just got to find those. And man, it's challenging.
Somebody said Tommy's mic's still too low, so if we can give him some volume.
Check 1, 2.
And yes, we sanitize the microphone as well.
Did
So
anybody ask about that?
No one needs to worry. And we
Okay.
are sitting a little close, but we've already made an agreement that we wouldn't hug each other or touch or breathe in each other's direction. So
Just for the
Right.
record, I did not make that agreement, so I'm out on that. You know, I just can't do that. Can't.
Can you hear me now? Ooh,
hot,
it's louder on our end, so let us know.
hot mic.
You know, you wonder, guys, if we're in this season for quite a long time, how it will impact the life of the church. I mean, I think there are people that'll be hungry to get back. I think there's another group of people that will get accustomed to not being here, and it'll be easier to never come back. Everybody's aware that financially this is going to make an impact on churches, you know. We're very fortunate in that, you know, the church is over 100 years old, and so we have very minimal debt in the $20-some thousand for so we don't have a huge debt load, and we don't have a huge salary pieces. But with everybody, you know, it takes $25,000 to $30,000 a month to keep the thing rolling for us. And there are a lot of churches that are really thinking, if we have months of this, what's going to happen? And it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah.
But I think we get a chance to be creative again, Tommy. I really do, man. I'm not discouraged by it. Go ahead, brother.
No, I was just going to say it is interesting because we were talking about this at work the other day, and we're just in an interesting time right now because we're in it right now. When you look back, you know, at any historical event, you have the luxury of seeing the beginning and the middle and how it ended. And so you can just see a snapshot of that whole thing, and we're not there yet. We haven't come out on the other side of this. We don't know what it's going to look like when it's over. And so every day is just that anxiety of, is today the day?
Yeah.
So,
and hey, I want to, you stirred something in my mind, and I was joking before saying I was going to turn every conversation into something spiritual. But I want to do that with this, and that is, I've got stuck on the fact that Jesus was quarantined in the wilderness for 40 days. I love that, and I've really gotten stuck there in my own personal study. And that's where he was tempted, you know, the devil came to him three times and tried to get him away from the mission that he was called to. But I never read the text close enough to say, so he was in the wilderness for 40 days, and when the 40 days were over, he was famished, and that's when the temptations occur. I thought, how interesting is it? You can be in the middle of a long, hard work day and just be driving, but you come home and sit down, it's like, oh man, I'm completely exhausted. And I think we're kind of in that stage right now where we're having to keep going, you know, we're having to keep driving and going and pushing and do all we can and work. And one of these days, this thing's going to be over, and then I think there'll be an adjustment piece that's going to be greater than what we anticipate. Because it's going to be like coming home from work and saying, dude, I am completely worn out. And
that's a good
I think
point.
that's an interesting piece. I don't know exactly. I know in my own life, I don't know if you guys are like this, probably not so much, but I can work hard all day and come home and sit down and just be quiet for a few minutes, and all of a sudden you're like, man, I'm beat, you know. But as long as you're at it, working,
Right.
going, you're good, you know. So I think we're in that season right now, and so I don't know where all that's going to go, but it's an interesting time.
We need some questions. Nobody's giving us questions. Somebody said something about, do you have a nickname? And somebody,
I don't have to share all that,
right.
do I? Yeah, my nickname is Bug Eyes. Bug Eyes.
Well, someone said it was Harvey Jane, if that was true or not.
No, it's not Harvey Jane. I'm not paying attention to that. That would be one of my sister-in-laws, and I dishonor her, so forget that right now. I want to share a little experience with you guys just quickly. So I called my mom yesterday, and she said, no, she called me. She said, I want to tell you about this. And she got into it, and she was moved to tears. I mean, like, Mother, I can't understand what you're saying. What are you talking about? And she said, well, I was at the house, and I counted them. So there were 28 cars that passed my house. and they were blowing their horns, and there were balloons from the antennas, and blowing, and some of them were holding signs that said, "We miss you," and others were holding signs that said, "We love you, can't wait till we can be together again." And so they had created this little parade of just people riding through neighborhoods and communicating, "I want us to be together." And it moved, literally, it moved her to tears, man. It's like, wow. I think that's really a creative way to move toward unity and community. And I love that, man.
Well, it's interesting to me that I feel like we've gotten to a place where a lot of people are socially disconnected anyway. They're on their phones or they're doing whatever. And now that we can't do it, we miss it. You know, it's like all of a sudden. Yeah.
Do you think, Tommy, and nobody knows this, I hope not, are we just going to go back to normal when this is over?
I don't think so. But I don't know. I feel like we're just going to make that transition. We've had things at work where we know we've been told like a new project's going to come on, and then so we're getting all ramped up for that, and then it doesn't happen. And so then the thought of going back to the way things were is a little disappointing, actually, because you're hoping for some type of change or something. And this may not be the same because this is, obviously a crisis that we're dealing with. But I think just some of the things we're going through, I think everybody is hopeful that things will not be the exact same way afterwards. And they probably can't be. I don't know that anybody has any idea of what the repercussions are going to be for businesses that have been closed and things like that.
I hate all that part of it. I'm thinking more just in I hate the business struggle and the financial struggle. And a lot of people going through that. Oh, my goodness. I'm thinking more about just the social mentality and the way we do life and the culture. And you said, it's interesting, you said people hope things will be different. I hope that you're right, that they hope things will be different. I'm always fearful that people will just want to settle back in to the way it always used to be, and I am just uniquely encouraged that this time gives us a chance to take a look at ourselves and say, hey, we're running too much. We need to slow down, or we're eating out too much, or whatever it is. We can't be quiet. Wasn't it Thoreau? Listen how literary I'm going to be. Come on, be impressed. Thoreau that said, most of the problems happen in life because we can't sit quietly in our own rooms.
Truth bombs. Truth bombs.
Yeah.
So next question. Jackie Hillsman says, it seems like people are really trying hard to be there for one another through this crisis. It's very uplifting. Have you seen that as well? Outside of the parade, maybe in our own church, have you seen that?
Oh my goodness, I have conversation with people every day that say, I can't believe how much people are reaching out to me. In fact, I think I mentioned last time we were together, I got a text from a guy who said, it's interesting, in this season of social distancing, I feel closer to people than I ever have before. Because there are people that are being intentional to text, to call, to email, to send a card, to deliver lunch. One of their guys yesterday delivered lunch to about 12 families.
Who was that?
Charlie Batchon from Khalil's down there. And Charlie served 12 families lunch. And almost every one of them texted me like, I can't believe this. It was so good. It was, and man, I want to encourage you, if you're a part of our congregation or any congregation, please accept the challenge in this time to be ridiculously connected to others. I mean, call them, text them, email them, send them a card. I don't know, drop off a goodie bag on their front porch. I know you're supposed to be wearing gloves. You got to figure all that germ stuff out. I don't know about all that, but find a way to just be engaged with others, man.
I agree. I find myself in this season, I have to be very intentional, like you said, to send a text, to give a phone call, because if I'm not doing that, I recognize, that time just goes by and I'm not connected with people again because I'm not seeing them. I'm not in a basketball league with them, or I'm not seeing them on Wednesday. I'm not seeing them on Sunday. And so you have to be very intentional.
Man, it can be out of sight, out of mind.
What
You know?
about what are we trying to do as a church to make sure people stay connected?
Well, we're doing everything we can through this YouTube, Facebook, virtual community that we're trying to not create, but be a part of. It's already there. You know, we're not creating anything, but just participate in the virtual community. And then we're blessed to have about 40 adults that have taken the assignment to be uniquely connected to 5 or 6 families or 7 families. And so we have a better network than we've had before to say, hey, you've got these 6 families, stay in touch, encourage them, bless them, see if they have needs. And you guys have been around for long enough to know we've tried to do that 25 different ways.
Right.
But it feels like in a season of real need, that could really develop. And so I've been excited about that piece of it, Trev. I think it's working. I mean, I think it's beginning to work, and it's encouraging to see that happen.
Tamara Browning says, could it be that families might find the time at home rekindles a heart turning back toward the family?
Tom, you want to respond to that, man?
I sure hope so. I know we've experienced that a little bit, even though we don't have any little kids in the house anymore. It's just a different feeling. We both work outside of the house, and we're gone all day, and we do kind of come home to that.
Yeah.
But, you know, even though we are working from home and we're very busy, just to have that time together, to tend to the house, to tend to things that we normally don't have to. So I can't even imagine what it's like for people whose lives are really crazier than ours.
Yeah. Wow.
So I sure hope so.
I hope that our hearts will be turned back to home. You know, I've seen that happening in some young families that were so busy. And amazingly, it's not just young families that are busy, by the way. I run into senior adults that say, I'm busier than I've ever been in my whole life, you know? And I think the challenge to slow down is a huge one.
Yeah, I agree. Slowing down, pausing, you know. I mean, this could be a blessing for some of us, right?
Oh, man.
You know, to recognize, you know, some of us are dealing with financial situations and losing jobs, but at the end of the day, you can't miss that the last 2 days it's been 70 or 80 degrees outside, and you can.
Hadn't it been gorgeous springtime? You're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Hey, can I tell another story before you ask that question? It's a Brennan Manning story. A guy come to Brennan Manning who's a Catholic Episcopal priest, kind of a radical lover of Jesus, and said, shared his struggles. And so Brennan told him, I want you to go spend 72 hours just with yourself. And so he came back after 72 hours and said, well, I read 2 or 3 books and I played Chopin on the piano. And he said, well, I didn't want you to do any of that. I just want you to just be there with you. And he said, well, I can't stand that guy. And he said, now you know why others can't either. It was around those moments that said, be quiet and take a look at yourself, man, you know? And so that's kind of challenging. I don't know. Sorry, Tommy, I didn't mean to point my finger.
No. I was going to say, actually, because my answer to that would have been, you know, I don't get along with myself that well. So it would have been a challenge. Yeah.
Maybe that's why I don't get along with you very well either.
I like this comment by Stephanie Glenn. She says, she's just replying back to Jackie's comment and just said, people at work have been so positive and encouraging towards one another. Several coworkers have talked to me about wanting to learn more about God during this time as they realize the need of something more in their life. Wow. So what a great opportunity.
Oh, man.
If you are in that place where you're still working and you're around people, or you can call people and encounter those, you know, situations where you can, you know, be there for people and point them to Jesus.
I don't know if you guys have found it, but I have found some people to be so isolated and hurting and struggling right now that the level of honesty in a conversation is different than it was before this. I mean, you know, when things are tough, people, they're open to an honest conversation. And I seem to be a little bolder in that, feeling like, hey, you know, in fact, I told Anita the other day, I came home and I said, man, I just preached to that guy, you know, and it was just a kind of an open, honest conversation. And
I appreciate that comment, and Stephanie actually works within the U of L health system.
Oh,
so
okay.
it's even a different level when you work in that type of
corporate America
Oh,
and
yeah,
can
man.
have those types of conversations without fearing any repercussions or anything like that. But I think it's interesting that you said bold, because I have found, like especially now with Facebook, and of course Facebook's been around for a while, but I've reconnected with people who I've known all my life, and they'll post, you know, a Christian meme or something like that. And one time I even asked somebody, I'm like, I didn't realize you were a believer. Like even when I
Yeah.
was little, you know, whatever, and they were adults at the time, you know, neighbor families or whatever, and it just wasn't obvious to me at the time. And so I wish, and I'm as guilty as anybody else, but I wish people were more bold in their faith and demonstrative of it.
I remember a Monica Fisher story. She was at lunch with a bunch of coworkers, and something happened that she just responded to and said, you know, I'm a Christian and I don't share that point of view. And this girl said, so am I, and I don't. And this girl said, so am I, and this girl said, so am I, and this girl said, and you're like, why have we never identified that as coworkers, you know? And I understand, and to agree, I respect corporate America trying to, they're not a church. We don't expect you to be a church in corporate America. You know, the platform of U of L is to be a doctor or a marketing agent, not to be a preacher necessarily. But man, it's so much fun to be in a moment and find out, wow, I didn't know you believed. I didn't know you're a person of faith.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe the culture's changing a little bit, or maybe it's just the direction that conversations go these days.
But there are several people in my department now that I do know are Christians, and it just may come out like, oh, you know, in our Sunday school class we were, you know. So I think even though they're not making some bold proclamation,
I understand.
it's just part of their lives, and if it is part of your life, it's going to come out. So
You know, I love that. In fact, I don't always preach for real bold proclamations. I'm saying, man, just live it. Just be who you are. Love people. Love the Lord. Just be yourself, and it'll come out. Like you say, it'll come out. And so it's a good thing. I love all of that.
Next question, a little bit different because you know we're in a
that's
good
all right.
serious
It's all
tone
good.
right now. But Jesse Ford asked, ask Harry of his favorite Tim Miller story he can tell, or comfortable telling.
My favorite Tim Miller story. Tim Miller always how does Tim Miller get in this conversation?
Popular guy, man. He's a well-loved man, you know.
My favorite Tim Miller story. You know, I've got a bunch. I really can't tell my favorite one.
is it?
Not safe for.
I don't
It's not
know,
PC
Tommy.
enough?
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not politically correct. It was just I don't know.
You don't want to overbrag on him, maybe.
No, man, it ain't that.
Okay.
It's just.
Yeah, I got you. Well, just give us something.
Oh, I'll give you 10,000 something.
Okay.
I tell you what I have loved. Tim Miller has brought a lot more to the table for us than you realize. When I began to just stop for a minute and think about it, he was instrumental in the praise team for such a long time. He's a great lead guitarist, and probably for 15 or more years, he played with Ben and Glenn and Carol Sheely for a long time. And man, he was so much a part of that, so helpful in that. Tim was, by and large, responsible for getting the basketball league started.
That's right.
It's been going on 15 years probably, maybe longer, I don't
Probably
know.
longer, yeah.
And now we have 50 guys a week, probably 40 weeks a year that are in there playing. And every bit of that is a result of Tim's work. Probably one of the funnest things for me with Tim, though, has been this office rocker thing that he does.
Oh, yeah.
And office rocker means off his rocker. And that's not about Tommy. He was a part of that team. It's about Timmy. Isn't that right, Tommy? It's about Timmy. Okay. So they did these videos. And even this week, we watched Serving the Lord. We're on the way to church, but we can't stop and help the lady with the... Go ahead, Tim. Tommy, talk about office rocker a little bit.
So, yeah, and I was actually going to mention it. So that, you know, we just make these short films, and Timmy introduced that to us in 2005. He had met up with some group, and they were going to start making these 48-hour films, and he asked me if I wanted to do it, and Ben's involved, and a couple others are involved, and we just did it. And, You know, we went and we showed the movie and saw the reaction. We're like, we may have a little something here. It's ridiculous, but it's fun. And so we've been making these short films for 15 years.
I love them.
Yeah.
Man, I love them.
Yeah.
You can find them. Can you
On
see
YouTube.
them?
Yeah,
Find them on
yeah.
YouTube?
Yeah,
It's,
they're
it's
all online.
Office Rocker.
One
One word, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Office
the
Rocker.
website is actually orpfilms.com. So,
Okay.
but yeah.
Wait a minute.
When you
Would you
search-
please get the advertising check? Timmy, that'll be $1,500. Would you just send us a check?
When you
if
search
don't
for our church name on YouTube, and you subscribe to our church page on YouTube, by the way, then right underneath it gives you some of those Office Rockers.
Yeah,
because
it's recommended, yeah.
It's recommending you.
Yeah.
Because Timmy, through the years, has also recorded like TNT skits.
Yeah.
And all those different things as well.
yeah.
So
Well-
it kind of relates.
Well, and I was going to share that too. Just a little story about Timmy. I cannot call him Tim as well. You know, when this was years ago, when somehow we got into doing the puppet skits
Yeah, I
for
remember that.
TNT. And
By the way, Tommy wrote those. And they
yeah.
were awesome.
Well, for the first year or two, we didn't. We just had some song or something or whatever, and I was just like, if we're going to do this, we're going to do something original.
Hey,
Like,
can you remember one?
Oh yeah, I mean the very first one we did was to Toby Keith's "I Want to Talk About Me," and it was "I Want to Talk About God." So, and I remember having the vision for it, but I didn't have all the pieces together. And I remember thinking we need just like the music of that. and this was before. You know, really,
Yeah.
you could just go online and find something. So I remember going to Glenn at the time and saying, hey, you know, would the praise team be able to like play this song or record it? Like, I don't care. I'm just asking. Help me out. And he says, you may want to talk to Tim Miller. I'm like, who's Tim Miller? So, but I mean, the rest is history. I mean, he was able to help us do those skits and record them. And yeah, so.
Hey, you remember, you asked me a question a minute ago. Jesse Ford, he's in one of those movies, just like, bam. You remember? It's like, bam.
Narcoleptics.
Yeah. Now, how would you like to be in a short video about narcoleptics? First of all, if you know what narcoleptics are, your vocabulary is pretty good. It's people that. Anyway, so much for
And
that.
honestly, those were silly. They still are.
right.
But there was a time period there where really the church family was involved in those so heavily.
Oh, yeah.
And still are. And so it was just a good time.
You know the Serving the Lord. Ralph Farron was in the
Yeah.
foyer handing out bulletins, and it looked like it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And just to see him was so sweet and wonderful.
Yeah,
I
and
love
that's another
that.
thing. And Timmy and I have talked about this quite often. You know, those are just snapshots for us. Our kids were in them when they were
Yeah,
little.
yeah.
We did one, and it had Joe Morrison in it, and so
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he was good in that. The Christmas one?
yes. So I mean,
What was the line in there that was really something about gravy or something? What
he,
was it?
well, he was just so excited. I mean, the whole premise of the movie
What was it,
that-
Ben?
that was Kenny Meredith.
that was Kenny Meredith.
But yeah, in the Christmas one, he was just so excited about all the breakfast food. He was like cinnamon rolls and casserole. So we were like,
So maybe it
I didn't
wasn't
even know at
gravy.
the time that Joe
was
was
really
like
good in
that.
that, yeah.
And we're like, is he going to be able to play this really over enthusiastic character? And then he came in. We're like, all right, we're going to have to tone that down. So
Can I jump on this in an odd way?
Yeah.
So we were thinking about doing this and tonight just to bring somebody in for the conversation. And I wanted to bring Tommy because Tommy is one of the kind of guys that you can sit down and we can just talk. I mean, you have to be, this is kind of a free spirit thing. I mean, there's no script, and so he's able to do that. And I realized after I'd asked him, man, there's no question, he's wide open to that because it fits him so beautifully. And so I'm thinking, man, that's the way community gets involved. You know, we develop community because people just find their way to get in, you know, and whether it's Joe Morrison in a movie or Ralph Farron out there or Kenny Meredith sitting at my desk, behind the desk, making one of those movies, you know. I love the opportunity for people to be themselves and yet be Christian and be a part of the community. I love that. Yeah. I wish if you are attending our church or any church, you'd be free to be you. I mean, just be yourself and be engaged in the community. And if your pastor won't let you, say, I'm a ballerina and I need to dance next Sunday, and he may say you're out. But you know, just be yourself and be part of that. So I knew when I asked Tommy Holzman if he'd come tonight, he'd say yes, because it's who he is. I love that too, Tommy. By the way.
well, thank you.
Yeah,
And that's a good thing about our church is like, you know, I know we're in a weird season right now, but when we all gather back together, there's so many opportunities to find that community. and you know, with if it's basketball, if it's dartball, if it's a children's ministry, it's helping with the teens, if it's helping Dave Kaplinger on Monday nights with the homeless ministry. There's so many places where you could plug in, and it's good to be a part of a community where you can do that, you know. And another thing to add into that is we're pretty open to, like, man, if you have a ministry on your heart. I was
going to say, man, if you are sitting out there with an idea that you want to do for the kingdom and need help from the church, we would love to help you pull that off. Absolutely. I mean, we would love to help you pull that off. And we've done the silly things. You know, we've had the trunk or treat. You remember when we went into the project area and set up trunk or treat in a project area? And it was so refreshing and different. We've done lots of fun things.
I remember I can't remember if this was one of Miss Sherry's ideas, but we actually went over to the apartment complex over here on Fort Haven, wherever, and did like little things or whatever. And
do you still have the yellow shirt?
I probably do.
Nathan did. Nathan drew a yellow shirt and
had like a logo on it.
Had a logo on it. Reese, did you have a yellow shirt from those days?
She's too young to remember.
Yeah, it's been a long time, but
one of my favorite, maybe not favorite, maybe more like just funny memories to laugh about was when I was first coming around the church. We went to Parcher's Point to do a Christmas event, and somehow I got talked into being Santa Claus, and so I had to go in and sit on a rocking chair in this house, and all these kids gathered around, and we were giving out presents to the kids, and then Jeannie at the time, I don't even think we were dating. And at the time, Jeannie's trying to put me on the spot. And she asked me to tell a Christmas story. So I had to like make up this awful Christmas story. And I'm sure it was like pretty much retelling of like a movie that I remember, you know, like the Santa Claus where he's like, you know, can hear the reindeer on the, I mean, it was bad. It was bad. And I remember just doing this whole spiel and looking out in the crowd and watching my wife just laugh at the time. So yeah.
You know what we remind me of? When James Curry, my son, was a butler, they had to read A Christmas Carol.
Okay.
By
like
Charles Dickens. Yeah, by Charles Dickens.
Okay.
Yeah. And so James said, I'm not reading that. He went home and watched the whole thing on TV. And it's the only time it happened in his high school career. He got the highest grade in the class.
Oh, okay.
So
the funniest thing about that whole thing was I thought you said when James Curry was a butler. And I'm like, I missed that. So.
All right, so back to a question.
Okay, roll it.
Some have asked if this pandemic plays into Bible prophecy, which I've got that from people as well. That this person, Tamara, is not the only one to ask that question.
I'll take this. No, I'm just joking.
I was about to be overjoyed.
Really? I was kind of excited there.
Wow. You know, first of all, there's some broad things you can say, like Jesus said, nobody knows when Jesus is coming back. Yeah. Only the Father in heaven knows, you know. So those that write their timelines and get really specific about those things, you can say you may have gone too far. At the same time, the Scripture says, you know, keep your eyes open, be aware of the signs of the times and all of those kinds of things. And there's some things, some qualifiers. There'll be wars and rumors of wars and all those kinds of things that, and I'm sorry I don't have that whole list memorized in my mind, that people will latch on to and say, oh, it's the end of the world. And do you guys remember, 2000? Do you remember when we were moving from 1999
like
to
Y2K?
2000?
Is that right?
Oh my goodness, man. Everybody's sure that the world's going to come to an end. All the computers are going to crash. The grids of the whole world are going to fall apart. People are filling their houses full of water and they're going to, one of the things that always intrigues me, so the world's going to fall apart and I'm going to protect my family. And I think, now wait a minute. If everybody in the world is going to be in huge crisis, you know, and so you're going to have enough water for your family to live 6 extra weeks. I mean, it never made a whole lot of sense to me.
Or toilet paper nowadays.
Or toilet paper now, that's right. The other thing that intrigued me was, you know, and I love, I passed out this week, or a couple of weeks ago, C.S. Lewis said, don't exaggerate your situation. Because you only have to look back in history and see what men and women and cultures have been through. You know, the plagues and the wars and the difficulties and the huge loss,
Right.
you know, and the Hitlers and the Mussolinis and all those dictators and all they've done, and the impact of communism on whole cultures and the Cuban, you know. So I don't know. I cannot locate this in a place that says this points to the end of the world.
I would agree with
In
that.
some sense, end times began when Jesus was raised from the dead. Now, we're in the season of end times, and we have a lot to look forward to. Can I tell another story?
Yeah, absolutely.
One of my brothers the other day was, it was early in the morning, he was driving to a job. And he said, I certainly didn't sleep while I was driving, he may have. But he said, I had this little vision. My dad's been gone for 40, how many years? 43 years.
Okay.
Long time. And he said, it was a beautiful beach scene, and the sun was rising, and we called him. Daddy was standing there in his face. And he said, if that's what we've got to look forward to, it's going to be a wonderful thing. And I sensed an openness and a longing and an interest in something eternal, you know. And so, Trev, I don't know, Tommy's going to answer this question better. I don't know if this is a prophetic word about the end of the world, but I know that Jesus can be trusted, and we have huge hope of a glorious eternity, man.
It's a great answer.
That's kind of wheezing
Nah,
out of
that's a
that,
good
but that's the
answer.
best answer I can give you.
I like this question. Bob McKay says, what should church look like after this is all said and done, after this coronavirus season?
Tom, you want to shoot that?
Should look like, right? Our
Yeah.
hopes of what church
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd like to hear what you have to say about it, just from your perspective. I feel like people would hopefully be more appreciative of the fact that we can get out and we can get together and we don't take for granted those things
That's
anymore.
good.
Because, yeah, we are offering all these new ways to do it, but it's
Yeah.
not the same.
It's not. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, hopefully this has been, if nothing else, just a gentle reminder that we're not in control. And, you know, just the way this situation has, you know, really crippled our society. I mean, I hope it does get people to thinking bigger picture.
Yeah, I love that. You know, I somehow, some of you guys know I'm a lover of words. And so I somehow got to thinking about the idea of being an extrovert. Well, I don't know why, but extrovert is spelled with an A. It used to be spelled with an O. And it wasn't until the psychologist Jung, who extrovert became the expression of a personality. Hundreds of years before that, it was just talked about turning the inside out. It was literally just the two words meant to take what's inside and turn it out. It was used medically in all kinds of different ways.
Okay.
And I think, Tommy, what I would love, or whoever asked, what I would love to see happen in this season is we would just get, Bob McCabe, we'd get a radically outward focus. And that doesn't mean, man, that doesn't mean just to people that don't come to our church. It means to everybody, just the people of our world and the people of our lives. I mean, the people you go to church with, the people you work with, the people your own family, just to get away from this selfish preoccupation with me and what I want. Man, if I could have anything for the church after this event, is we would all get our eyes off ourselves and begin to see others differently.
Amen.
Man, if that would work,
Yeah.
oh man, that would be a tremendous thing.
Let's get some amens in that chat, man.
That
Amen.
would be a tremendous thing.
All right, next
And I
question.
need that
Yeah,
as bad
go
as, by the way, I need that just as bad as anybody, man.
Yeah, I agree.
As anybody. Okay, go ahead.
I like this question.
Well, I may
I
let.
like it. I like it, Tommy.
Okay.
You have something to do with this question as well.
Okay.
Okay. Any chance the Christmas show could come back?
I'm going to let Tommy
The
answer that.
Christmas show. You know, I was thinking
remember
about
that?
that earlier. Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
man.
I was thinking about
What
that
a
earlier when
time.
we were just talking about all the different things that we've done and the opportunities
Yeah,
that there
man.
really is
Tell,
to do
tell us
here.
a little bit about what that was, because some people may have no idea what that was.
So this was years ago, probably about the same time we started making the short films and everything. It was just really a great period of time. We were just doing like a little, I think I even called it an evening of Christmas entertainment because we never
Yeah.
really wanted to call it a show.
Right.
And so really, it was just really more of like a variety show.
It
we
was.
had songs and skits and little short films, and if you played an instrument, come up and do that. And it really was an outreach effort. Like,
It
you know,
was.
if my son's going to be up here on the stage doing something, then you can bet people are going to come
Grandma's gonna be
to
here.
see that.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I think we did that for about 5 or 6 years. We did a short film for it every year. And again, the whole church was involved. And
We had refreshments afterwards?
we have refreshments
Yeah, man.
afterwards,
Yeah.
hot chocolate and cookies.
Great.
So
Yeah.
I mean, it really was a great time, and it was it was a lot of work to put together, but it's
Yeah.
fun. But you know, I would love to do that again. It was a season, and things have changed. People who were involved are no longer with us, and so.
But it was like our congregation, right? It was
yeah.
the talent
Yeah.
of our church members, right?
Yeah, exactly. We just put the word out in the bulletin. Hey,
I
you
remember
want to
like
do something in
I remember
the show?
like Paige Lewis up here singing "All I Want for Christmas Are My Two Front Teeth" or something.
Do
Is
you
that right?
really?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like just I
Yeah.
think you had the college group at the time. I was in college.
Yes, they did a skit about
we did
going
a
out
skit.
caroling
Oh,
and it
yeah.
not being successful, and we actually turned that into a small film. I know that Nathan was in so many of those little skits we did, and
Right.
it's just longer ago than you realize.
My
but, yeah.
favorite memory of that Christmas. And how many of those did we do?
I think we did at least 5 or 6
Oh
years
wow!
of them.
I didn't know we did that many.
Yeah.
One of my favorites was Robert Childers gets up here to do a song, and I love Robert.
Yeah.
And the lights were on him so bright. He started into the song, and he literally had to like start the song over because he was blinded by the stage lights we had.
Yeah.
And part of that is you probably had to be there to really
you did, yeah.
to enjoy that, but that was just a classic moment.
Yeah, those were good times.
It was
So
good.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm always up for that. Christmas is my favorite.
Whoever asked that question,
You're my favorite.
there's Tommy Holzman right there.
He's in the
Pin
crowd.
him down.
He's in the crowd, the
Pin
guy that-
him down.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, maybe enough time has passed that there's a whole new crop of
Can
talent out
Can
there.
I
so.
just throw one little thing in when we think about the Christmas show? I can't remember the event. And Tommy, you guys didn't do it. I don't know how we did it. But it was something we did in the sanctuary, and we mounted a projector on the basketball goal, and we made it snow on one end of the
Yeah.
building.
Yeah.
You remember? And
That
the
wasn't too
kids,
long ago.
I know, it was in the last
It
3
was
or
probably
5 years.
4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, the kids got up
Yeah.
and ran down there just like I want to get in this.
Yeah.
It was a one of those
I'm
moments.
trying, I'm
We
trying
had
to remember all the details
I
around
don't
that, but I
have any
remember we had
idea.
Kevin Hodges, and we tried to do the word is completely escaping me. We're like a flash mob, where like it just would start singing
yeah.
out of the
Oh,
blue.
you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
So-
Oh, you're doing well,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We put him on a spotlight when he started it out. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's
like the
fun
lights
to
went down.
think about. And again, Tommy, your encouragement a minute ago, the creative things we've done. Like we did the Monday, Thursday one time where they put
I know
Matt
what
Wiedmeyer made this big set of
Headphones.
headphones, and you'd step up in the platform, and somebody would take a microphone, and you'd stand there, and they would speak words of appreciation
That was
and
awesome.
encouragement and blessing,
Yeah.
and it was just Go ahead, Tommy. Go
Well,
ahead.
I was thinking about that on the way over here. I think that was like Stations of the Heart or
Yeah, that's
something,
right. Oh,
because there
yeah,
were
that's
like
what it was.
different
Yeah, 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 yeah.
stations you could go
Yeah.
to. Like I remember doing one where it was like a little, like I was a waiter and people came and sat at a
Yeah,
table.
you were in the
and
middle of the-
menu
you were in the
had
middle of the room.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the menu had questions just to spark conversation.
Yeah.
Ben-
You know, I'll be honest, I think we were ahead of our time on that
Yeah.
thing.
We were,
so.
because Ben, didn't you put together a station where different people could come take a love language test? Is that
We
right,
did.
Ben?
That's right.
We were way beyond our years on that one, man.
Yeah.
Because the funny thing about it was like it was very lowly attended. Do you
Yeah,
guys?
nobody
remember?
came.
Nobody
I
came.
mean, we didn't have 50 people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the big headphones.
Yeah.
I still have pictures.
Yeah.
I think people can be apprehensive of things they're not real sure what's going to
Right.
happen.
Something
Yeah, I
so
guess.
new, maybe.
But you're right. It was terrible attendance,
Yeah.
man. Go
Well,
ahead.
what I do remember about that was, if I recall, up in the college room, like I think Charles Shear and that whole group, they
Yeah.
did like the whole.
We had communion up there.
yeah, they
You know
had
what
like
I
the-
remember, and this was my favorite piece in that. We're just going down history, recalling history, I guess. Sandra Blakely was a teacher, and she had a little Sunday school class.
Yeah.
And she and I talked about it, and I encouraged her to teach one lesson. Encourage people to quit saying love you, and encourage them to say, I love you.
It's good.
And how difficult it was. And she just did a great job that evening, taking that little class, one after the other, and encouraging people to say, I love you. And that was a pretty, when we think back about that, that was a pretty neat event. You know, we pulled that off together.
really
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah,
It was good.
That was good.
Yeah.
So we'll have to put that on the, maybe for Christmas, do the Christmas show, and then
Okay.
maybe bring back the Stations of the Heart, I think is what we called that.
Yeah.
All right, next question. Does Harry have an answer for why so many wild characters have come through the doors as youth pastors? Arnold Wilson, Jeremy Duranso, James Curry. I mean, there's a little bit of truth to that, right? There were some characters.
Yeah, let me tell you a couple of those real quick.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't. Is it okay if I take a minute and tell you about all
Oh,
those?
absolutely.
So at the time Jeremy was hired, I was looking for a youth pastor, and we were in Bowling Green for something.
What year was this?
Dude, I don't know.
We talking 15 years ago?
At least 15 years ago.
Okay.
At least 15 years ago, maybe more. And I knew Jeremy from growing up on the district as a kid, and he just had lots of connections. He always had this funky kind of attitude. Jeremy's Jeremy. What's up, Jeremy? And so he was sitting down the front row of the church. He'd just gotten back into the church. So I said, Jeremy, is there any chance, do you know somebody that you could recommend as youth pastor? And he said, yeah, me. I'm like, dude, you haven't been back in church 2 months, and I'm not sure about your lifestyle, and I don't know. And I'm like, okay. So I set an appointment to go down and meet with him, interview him. We hired him, and he came. And he did a great job.
He started as college pastor, though, is
He
that
did
correct?
he started as
'Cause
college
he was my
pastor.
college pastor.
That's right.
He was a big reason why, I really understood who Jesus
Arnie,
was. Yeah.
Arnie, in a different way, was transitioning kind of out of ministry in a season where he's kind of out. I know he had great skills and great talents, and I felt like, man, this guy needs to be in ministry. And so we invited him, and he came.
Arnie as youth pastor?
Arnie is youth pastor, yeah. James, that didn't have as much to do with me as it did with Tim Cox
Tim Livesay.
and Tim Livesay. Tim Livesay said to me, James Curry needs to be your youth pastor. I'm like, dude, what do you, and I remember the times where, he absolutely was adamant against that. And one time in a youth group, when Arnie was teaching, he pulled his chair away from that and went over and sat down by his mother and said, I refuse to be the leader in this group. They were all kind of looking to him. Actually, this Sunday, he's getting his last check as our youth pastor because he's going into his own full-time business. And I'm going to miss him terribly. But those guys, listen, those guys and their acceptance are a reflection of the life of our church.
Absolutely.
Look around. We are a messed up bunch. I mean, we do not have what they call a homogeneous unit, which means we're all yuppies and drive BMWs, and we're as varied and different as we could possibly be, from those that are professional and successful to those that literally are on the far opposite. And the acceptance and the love and the generosity that goes both directions in that is really what makes our church unique. In fact, I think one of the demonstration of the Spirit's presence in a church is that there is diversity. And I think if there is not diversity, and I'm no expert, but if there's not diversity, probably something's wrong in that, And so I love the diversity of our church.
Amen. Yeah.
I love it.
This church is a family. I felt that the first day I walked through the door.
Oh, man.
And, just sitting here sharing these memories, I can't even think now about some of these things without thinking about everybody who's come through those doors has impacted my life in some way.
I love that.
And so, yeah, it's hard to even think of memories now before
Right.
being part of this family.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Good. No more questions?
That was a smooth transition to talk about youth pastors, talk about James. It's his last Sunday, You know, that was a good transition.
I'm a master of the segue.
I don't know if
baby.
anyone caught
I'm
that,
the
but that
master
was
of the segue.
that was smooth.
Is he going back to being a butler?
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, and Nathan said he watched a Muppets Christmas Carol for that report
Oh,
that
that's
he
right.
did.
That's right. Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't
even the full-blown
it wasn't
Christmas
no,
Carol.
He and he had
It
a
was
high
a
school
Muppets
buddy.
Christmas Carol.
He had a high school buddy came over that way. Fazar, was that his name?
Fazar, that sounds familiar, yeah.
Fazar came to our
Yeah.
house. The only time he's ever there, they sat up there in the TV room, we call it, and watched the Muppets Christmas Carol, and James got the highest grade in the class.
That's impressive.
So
that
that's
is
a different-
impressive.
Yeah, it's a different.
You know, when you said that, it just made me think real quick. One of the things I remember doing is when we actually did like the feet washing up here and had the whole Last Supper thing.
Yeah.
I've always loved the things that we do
You know,
and,
there have
and
been
the
Yeah,
forward
it's good.
thinking.
I don't know why. There's some things, and if we sit here and we didn't plan to walk down memory
Memory
lane,
lane,
but
yeah.
that's what we've kind of done. We had a Sunday where I don't know. I'm sure you were here, Tommy, and I can't remember, Trev, if it's before you were here or not. But we had a Sunday where people just kind of took the microphone and said some verbal statement that I'm in.
Yeah, you
know,
remember that?
I made a commitment. I'm in. I'm
You know
a Christian.
what? You know why I remember that?
Why?
Because Harold Newton
I mean, he
stepped
was
up.
on my heart right now.
Yeah.
That Sunday, you know, Harold made a strong statement about his own faith and his commitment to the Lord
Yeah.
and his dedication. And then that following week,
Yeah.
we lost him to a heart attack. And I never forgot that. It was just, it'll always be there, you know,
Yeah.
it'll always be there. And anyway, we need to get off that. That makes us too emotional for me. Let's talk about something else.
So how are other churches that share our building, how are they doing during this time?
Man, what a great
Yeah.
question. You know, we have 2 Hispanic congregations and an African congregation. And they're struggling
Yeah.
because they can't get together. And honestly, we have a newly formed small group to serve them.
Okay.
And I'm hoping that
From our church?
from our church, that I'm hoping that they will find some ways to encourage them. And Trev, I don't have all the answers
It's
for
tough
that. I
though,
don't
because
know, man. I
their
don't
their
know.
community was here when they would gather and pray and gather on Sunday mornings in the youth room. The Hispanic church would do that with Teo and them.
I think there is. No, I don't know. I was going to say I think there is some gathering still happening, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know about
Yeah.
that. I don't know.
This was great.
Peace and quiet.
Yeah. This was a great conversation. Ben, you got anything? 8 o'clock. I
Okay.
think we can start wrapping this thing up, Harry. What do you think?
I'm absolutely. Tom, you got any? I mean, you're not always.
Some concluding
First of all,
comments?
let me thank you, Tommy Hillsman, and Ben and Reese and Jesse and Aaron and Lindsay and Miles, which are back there somewhere, and Trevor. Just anything you want to say. I mean, you're not often in this place. I mean, you've already said a mouthful.
No, I mean, I really didn't know what to expect when I got the text from you last night, but I think how we've proven through our conversation, you know, just the different things that we do and your ideas and things like that, I knew it would be worth it. So,
Man, you guys have made it wonderful, and I love that. And you know, this effort is just to give you an opportunity in some odd way to be reconnected and to engage, maybe with a question. Most of you watching probably didn't offer a question. That's perfectly okay. But we're looking forward to the day that we can get back together. But I'm looking forward to the day that we can get back together and be different. You know, that we can be less focused on me and more focused on others. The others in here and the others out there, all of them. And boy, if the Lord does that, that'll be a great thing.
I think the last thing I'll say is I think it's important to text James tonight, give him a phone call over the next couple of days. It's his last Sunday, you know. I'm glad you said that because I don't know how else we would have got that word out, honestly.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people know that at this point, that it was coming. But just give him an encouragement text or phone call and just thank him. How many years, Harry, did he serve as a youth pastor?
12, I think. 12.
Yeah, that's a huge commitment to the life of the kingdom as well. So I think that would be great. If somebody can put his phone number in the chat there, Ben, and they can just text bomb him and call him. So I think that'd be great. So what's next on the live stream schedule, Harry? How can people get prepared for Sunday morning
Okay, let me
worship?
tell
Yeah.
you. First of all, and then we'll wrap this up. Thank you, Ben, for telling us 8 o'clock. First of all, before we get the live stream,
Yeah.
there's a little Facebook video that we've been doing for 2 years, coming out in the morning.
Yep.
And we shot it out in the backyard. It seems like we shoot a lot of things in the backyard right now. But
There's also a blooper reel
I know
on
there's
YouTube.
a blooper reel on YouTube.
So if you don't have anything else to do, you find yourself in that spot,
And there's some office rocker stuff
right?
there.
Go to
Yeah.
YouTube, watch some Office Rocker, watch the blooper reel. The blooper reel is 30 minutes long, so that is fantastic. I know
That's a
you
lot of
don't.
bloopers.
You probably would never announce that to the
I
world.
don't care. I think it's
Tommy,
wonderful.
did you watch it already?
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of laughs, huh? Yeah, it's good stuff.
So, little Facebook video in the morning and then morning worship, at 10:30 right here. And
How can
We'll
our
be
people
together.
get ready for that morning worship? What's that look like?
Most of all, I think just pray.
Yeah.
And encourage one another to tune in. I mean, there's
Yeah.
no other way to do it right now. You know.
It's a weird season, but what an opportunity to invite someone to go to church with you.
Yeah.
You know?
I think
Share a link and say, hey, come and watch this.
I had a pastor call me this week and say, I don't know how we're going to count the people. So we typically run 300 to 400, and last Sunday we had 1,400 people watching the video. Now, we know analytically that's a hard thing to kind of
Yeah.
figure out and prove, so we were in the same place. We had many, many more people that watched it at some point. But just encourage people. Maybe have a conversation that follows up and say, hey, what'd you think about that? The big deal is just be engaged with one another. In a season where we're told we have to isolate and quarantine, find ways to communicate with one another. That'd just be fabulous. So it's good. It's good.
It's good.
Man, thank you guys for being here.
Yeah,
I want to say a little prayer before we go, okay? And then we'll be done. Lord, I thank you that we are a church, and we're reminded again that church is not a building. Memory comes back to me right now that in December of 1992, the Trinity Church burned down, and the newscaster came and said, what do you think, Pastor? And I said, well, I think the church is not a building. And tonight we're not a building, oh Lord, we're a people. And we're not just the people that attend this church, we're the people of God scattered through all kinds of denominations and churches and ministries all over the city. And we are part of the great family of God. And I pray in this day, in this season, we'd celebrate that and enjoy that and just not lose the focus on that and stay right at the height of our walk with you. Thank you for this night. Thank you for Trevor and for Tommy and for Ben and for Aaron and Lindsay and Miles and for Reese and for all that have helped make this just a good evening. And thank you for a time together. And bless everybody that listened now and will listen later. And keep your hand on all of us, and we'll give you praise. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And everybody said, Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you.